People who are on the spiritual path in a committed way know that attachment leads to suffering. They also know that when we make choices, it's out of love or fear. And yet, when it comes to romantic relationships, the ego tries to convince us that this is a realm in which there should be exceptions to the rule. Now, when it first comes to attachment and that leading to suffering, what comes to mind for me is our attachment to the longevity of a relationship. When you're on the spiritual path, all of a sudden everything that occurs is a lesson. You start opening yourself up to becoming your authentic self, and in communicating that desire to the universe, everything around you becomes utilized towards your personal growth. And so you might want, because of your desire for security, for a relationship to last forever. Now, there's a psychologist, his name is George Kelly, and he noticed that a lot of people's behaviors were motivated by making their future more predictable. The desire to have stability and stasis in one's life. Concurrently, a lot of people on the spiritual path know that there's this popular phrase about people coming into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and that resonates. But again, it doesn't resonate in the romantic realm so much as it does for other kinds of connections that we make, because there's this desire for predictability and stability, but you don't know how long a relationship is coming into your life for. So if you don't want to suffer, if you don't want the attachment to lead to suffering, then just let it be what it is. Don't try to force it to last longer than it's meant to last in your life. If the lessons are complete, let go. If you try to force something, it only results in pain. Now, the other concept that is popular is making choices out of love or out of fear. And people don't like to look at the fact that marriage, as an attempt to create stability in one's life, the majority of time will result in infidelity. There's infidelity in a majority of marriages. Now, people say, well, that's always someone else's marriage, not mine. But that's obviously not always the case. So a lot of times, because of jealousy, people won't open up their relationship. They will try to get their desires met, but don't want their partner to, so that's why they cheat. And so a lot of times, marriages that do stay together, there is a kind of mutually assured destruction in which if either side loves anyone else, is intimate with anyone else, then that's the end of it. And they both know that, so they stay together. And in that dynamic where your partner becomes the person who controls your love and your body, there builds up resentment. And that's why a lot of times there's the passive aggressiveness that comes out. It might be different topics of some benign nature, but underneath it is a resentment because nobody likes to be controlled. But at the same time, the ego grip around jealousy and possession is so strong that nobody wants to even question that. So if you look at jealousy, if you look at the underlying dynamic of why do people want to possess each other's bodies, I believe it comes from a sociobiological tendency towards the genetic motivation, the DNA having this underlying control on an unconscious level for perpetuating itself. And us on that animalistic level being nothing more than servants to our genetic selfishness. So man would want to, just have his resources go into raising his own child, and so if his child was not his own, that would be a waste of his is genetic perpetuation, and a woman wants a man to stick around and help raise the child and for him to be dedicated and so forth. And this kind of biological drive that we have, I look at sociobiology as our tendency, and it's useful to understand, but it's not our destiny, because a lot of what is powerful about the spiritual path is breaking away from biological animalistic drives towards higher goals. And sociobiology is all about perpetuating one's own genes and caring more about people that you're genetically connected to than some stranger on the other side of the world and so forth. And the spirit works differently. It's all about interconnection. It's not about having a hierarchy on the spirit level. It's about seeing the humanness in all people and so forth. So our jealousy is animalistic in nature. And some people try to twist the truth around and make it about love. They say, well, I'm jealous because I love that person. And that's why I don't want them, connecting with anyone else. And that's why, I feel afraid when I see the way they look at this other person and so forth. So I want to shame them out of it. I want to, control them, manipulate them out of that potential loss that I may experience. That's love, right? No, it's fear. Obviously, it's fear. But most people just draw the line, and they're not going to question that line. And that's why a lot of times people don't find peace in relationships, because they come up with these dynamics in which they're biologically fixated perhaps for a period of time, let's say 2 or 3 years, on one person. And after that, they're hoping that the other person is going to maybe, allow them something in some drunken moment or something. But again, it's that parental dynamic. And when somebody is your parent, when your partner is also your parent who controls your body and controls your mind, that's what leads to resentment. And some people, they'll try to sublimate their desire for love and sexuality into focusing upon their careers or sports or some kind of achievements or whatever it is that they're investing all that energy into. But if you truly want peace in this life, and most people don't, they just kind of want to, perpetuate their genes and then die. But if you want to go beyond what is the normal biological programming within you, then eventually you have to get to that place where you're no longer attached to the length of your relationship, and you're no longer attached to being the only person that your partner loves, and no longer the only person that they are intimate with, if that's where the energy goes. Because when it comes to attachment, to the length of time that people are together, a lot of times what happens is people go along, and from the time they start dating to the time they get married, let's say the average relationship lasts about a year or two or so forth, and it varies greatly from person to person, but it's not unusual for people to go through a variety of relationships for, let's say, the first 10, 20 years of their romantic experiences. And as they go through this variety of dating experiences, they reach a certain point, and a lot of times they feel that it relates to the age at which they should start to have children. And then it has to be about this person lasting forever. And so all the ritual around a wedding and so forth is trying to build up that goal, that vision. But a lot of times it doesn't go so well. And when people end up cheating on each other, they may rationalize that, well, what the other person doesn't know won't hurt them, and so I'm going to try to get my desires met in that sneaky way. But that secrecy, which is so common, even for those who don't actually cheat in terms of having intercourse with someone else or whatever, there's still that flirtation, creating energy, fixation, fantasy, all this hidden world, this secret world that creates distance between you and your partner. And that, again, just makes them into this parental figure that's stopping you from climbing up and reaching into the cookie jar, which creates resentment. So the only way to consistently live a spiritual life is to take the idea of attachment leading to suffering and take the idea of choices coming either from a place of love or from a place of fear and apply them not only to the safer, easier elements of your life, your work, your friendship, and career goals and stuff like that, but to apply them to romance as well. To let a relationship be what it is without clinging to it as if it's a vital organ. To, in other words, not become overly attached to anything in the world of form and what form takes for the lessons in your life. And to also not just look at jealousy as something that is normal and has to be accepted and therefore is a justification for your possessiveness, for your control, for your manipulation that, keeps the other person kind of fenced in so their behaviors don't threaten your sense of security. You have to let go of all of it. And it could be a completely transformed world, because the world we see around us is largely a fractal of how we handle love. And there's so much schism between the spiritual principles that we may post on our Facebook wall, little images and words that are about love and that are about attachment and letting go, and how we actually practice these concepts in our relationships. So this, I feel, is the only way to create a congruent mind, is to take these principles that work in other areas of life and apply them to romantic love as well.